Last Wednesday at Foundations, I was very convicted when we were talking about Lot versus Abraham. And one of the things that came up was really the first two verses of chapter 18 and chapter 19. Can we pull up we'll start with 19. If we have Bible on the screen. Boom. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting at the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. And now, chapter 18. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Do you all see the contrast here? Abraham sitting at his tent, at his home, waiting for the Lord. The Lord appears and he goes to him. Lot sitting at the gate of the city, away from his home, and doing business or whatever he was doing, and sees and responds. And that was good for Lot. But the contrast of Abraham near his family, Lot not near his family, was piercing to me. And you see, it was, I made automatic connections. I look at these passages and I'm like, okay, Abraham's proximity to his house, his family, he was in order because of it. Because of Lot's lack of proximity to his house, his family was in chaos. And Abraham was chosen to teach his kids. And Lot was away from his family and couldn't teach his kids. And everyone else he was with everyone else and doing too much, and that's why his family fell apart. And I was convicted by this because I felt like, man, I'm spending a lot of time away from my home. Does anyone else feel like this?
Y'all catch
Just
that?
Me?
Abraham's at home, his family's in order. Lot's out at the gate, his family's in chaos. Therefore, you must have to be home for your family to be in order. And if you're not at home, your family's going to be at chaos. Anybody else feel? He was not alone. I also felt that. Anybody else think about that?
That's actually a lot less than I thought, which is encouraging. You guys, it's like all Abrahams out there. That's amazing. So I've just been battling with these fears and thoughts in my mind, like, man, I feel like my kids and my family are going to end up like Lot's and be in ruins. Jody, as she mentioned, is 5 days away from giving birth. And we have 6 kids starting tomorrow entering into school. And so I'm like, man, we timed that well. All right. That was really good. Lots of other things thinking about.
When will this result in school starting?
I can barely think a week ahead, much less 9 months. So fear started to grow into me because I don't know if I'm going to have time to help Jody. I don't know if I'm going to have time to help 6 kids through school. And also what was reflecting in my mind is like, this is something that I grew up struggling with in my father, because my father was always at church, always pursuing ministry, always studying for Bible studies, leading Bible studies, doing all the things that God was putting on his heart, and getting time with him was very hard. And this would cause me to get very angry with him and say all kinds of not nice things. And I could see like, oh man, I'm repeating this, and I'm trying to minister at the gate like Lot with my family while my family is crumbling and in chaos. And so I know some of you all identify with this because I've spoken with you. That this is real. a real fear, right?
Anybody else ever wondered if all of the ministry and things that you're doing and all the busyness of your life is ultimately going to ruin your family? Pastor Ben, you are not alone. I too have had those fears. I know what it's like to watch my family become attached to one person after the next, only to watch many leave. I have wondered if the people that I brought into my home were bringing sin and worldliness in at a level that my children have never known. Would my children become corrupt because of the people that I'm bringing into my home? I've wondered if the attention that I had to give to each person, to each couple, to each family was taking away from my wife and kids so much that they would ultimately resent me and ministry for having to share me so much. Anybody else relate to that at all? I've worried as I've walked out the door to another meeting, as I left my wife behind, if I was ruining them, and would ultimately be disgraced as my family fell apart, disqualifying me from ministry and ruining my witness. I have had those fears. That ultimately the way that all of this would be undone is that my family, while I'm paying so much attention to this, that my family would fall apart behind me, it would ruin my witness, and all of this would fall apart and the devil would win. Anybody ever had any kind of fears associated with ministry?
And guys, it doesn't even it can be whatever God is currently calling you to do. It can be work. God has placed you in a job that is requiring this of you. And you're obviously not going and doing more than what he's calling you to do, but you're still called to go and do work, right? So it's not just, you don't have to just be a pastor to be in this situation. God is calling each of us to die and to do what he is calling us to do, right? So this can feel like this picture with a scale. There it is. So this is what it feels like a lot of times to me. I have family on one side, ministry on the other, and I have to hold them in perfect balance. I'm going to put one block here, one block there, one block here, one block there. And if I put 5 blocks here, then the other gets skewed, and now it's off. And it's like, oh man, if I give time and energy to this, the other is going to suffer. This is the
Y'all know about that?
This is the picture of what I see and what I feel a lot of times. And so when I'm looking at these scriptures, many times the conclusion we come to is this slide. The conclusion I came to. The next slide. There we go. Abraham near his home equals good. Lot at the city gate equals bad. This is how my logical brain works.
Yeah, mine too.
It's like very mathematical. But most of the time when we look at things in the flesh or in just our logical minds, that's the result we come to. And we have news for you. This is not the right conclusion. This is wrong. This is not the way to think of this. And the reason is because, just a glimpse into like how I go about studying the Word, how we go about looking into things of the Word. When you come across something like this, you're like, man, this is really hitting me. And I feel like I need to dig into this. And so when you look into this and you start going throughout all of Scripture, your mind is enlightened to what is actually true. Okay? And so what we found was there was righteous men at the gate throughout Scripture. And so this can't be the reason why Lot's family fell into chaos.
No, foremost, Proverbs 31:23. This was the first thing that I thought of right away. Her husband is respected at the city gate. This is a Proverbs 31 woman. How many women in here want to be a Proverbs 31 woman? Well, that Proverbs 31 woman's husband is respected at the city gate.
Family in order.
where he takes his seat among the elders of the land, which means there are other righteous men at the gate. Ruth 4, 1 through 11 also talks about Boaz going up to the gate and sitting down there. And he says, behold, the close relative of whom Boaz spoke was passing by, and he said, turn aside, friend, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. We see that Boaz conducted the legal transaction to redeem Ruth at the city gate in the presence of the elders, signifying the gate's role in legal matters.
One more that I thought of was Job. Job 29, 7 through 8 says, when I went to the gate of the city and took my seat in the public square, the young men saw me and stepped aside, and the old men rose to their feet. Now, Job is considered a righteous man by God. Considered righteous and led his family, led his wife, even through the most difficult circumstance ever. You can see Job's wife kind of, like Lot's wife, kind of get doubts and say, curse God and die. And he successfully leads her and says, no, this is not who you are. You're speaking as one of those wicked women. That's not who you are. And then she's at peace. You don't hear again about the wife. This is a righteous man leading his wife, okay? Leading his family. So righteous men are clearly at the gate. Clearly, I have come to the wrong conclusion that Lot's family was in chaos because he was doing ministry, and that Abraham's family was doing so well because he was at home all the time. What then are we supposed to deduce and understand from this story? Because the author, Moses, is clearly contrasting the two. And so we need to find out.
Yeah. So, look, everybody's going to, tighten up today, pucker up today. Oh, my. John. It's going to be one of those days, right? But at the end of the day, we promise you what we're telling you is true, and we're not trying to we're not trying to destroy your family any more than God is.
We'll all have a group hug at the end.
Yeah. So we want to take a closer look, because I looked at Abraham's life and I'm like, man, he's just walking around with his family all the time. He's just with his family all the time, and that's why they were in such good shape. Because he's just with his family all the time. And then thinking like, what would that look like in our life? Well, for me to just stay at home all the time with my family, that would be what is best for them. That was the easy thought. That's an easy thought to get to, okay? But let's take a look at Abraham's journey, and I want you to imagine if you were in this family and you were having to go through this. Is this the kind of family, when you think about Abraham's family, think, being home with my family all the time, like Abraham was. That's how it's all going to get solved. I want you to imagine husbands, wives, as we read through what Abraham's family life looked like. Is this what you were envisioning? Bring that slide up. So, Abraham and his family were together as they went into a famine. Sarah was with her husband, and she followed him, and it led her into another man's chambers. Pharaoh, and then Abimelech. Twice that happened. Family life. I want you to imagine, women, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, Abraham. Now imagine everybody in here, right? Let's just say that this is the amount of men in Sarah's house that help with the daily chores. The animals, cleaning everything up, taking care of everything that needs to go on. Everybody's got a job. And then Abraham's like, hey, Sarah, I'm going to take everybody and we're all going to go rescue Lot. Remember Lot? I'm going to go rescue him. He got himself into trouble. How long will you be gone for? I don't know. You're taking all the men? Yeah, all of them. Can you leave me some? I can't. What are we going to do? You don't hear any of that. Family life. Abraham, father of your faith. Example of your faith.
He brought strangers home and led to an impromptu feast. This sounds like something I would do to Jody. Hey, we're going to have 40 people over.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Family life.
Obeying God led to potentially killing his own son.
She's like, what are you going up to the mountain to do?
How'd that go over?
One of those, can't you just take one of those 318 men? Why don't you take Lot? Take Lot up the mountain. Yeah. So it was a lot less about Abraham just being home all the time and a lot more about trust. It was a lot more about submission and right order within the family. It was a lot more about Abraham trusting God and everyone in the household trusting the leader.
Yeah, Abraham had vision from God, heard from God, and then did what he was told. And then there was that trust and the following of the family and his men all around him were led by him in that way. Now, flipping to Lot. Lot's journey. So we're still comparing, trying to investigate why is this happening. Lot, as you guys know, walked by sight and led his family into worldly comfort. Can we just do the next slide real quick? Because this is what it looked like. He looked up, he saw with his physical eyes, he made a logical decision.
Seems good to me.
He chose, he departed, left, and then he lived among the cities of the plain. And then a little bit later, he's pitching his tent a little bit closer to Sodom. And then a little bit later, he's all the way directly in Sodom.
So they didn't get wicked all of a sudden. It was gradually, over time, he led his family into wickedness, going off of what he saw and felt was best.
So go back to the last slide. So you see the compromise, the steady, like, this would be nice. Let's do this. This is comfortable, and that's what he was doing. And then also he was double-minded when God gave him an instruction. Hey, you should get out of here. This is going to burn to the ground. He was like, The
angels had to be like, come on. That's what the angels had to do.
So of course, instead of being led and obeying the Lord without fear and complete trust, his wife doesn't trust. His daughters are fearful and don't trust. And so it destroys his family. He surrounds himself with the sexually immoral in Sodom. And his daughters, wow, surprise, surprise, become like the culture itself. Not only that, but you see in the story, he lacks a seriousness. Brothers, don't do this wicked thing. There's not a seriousness of conviction in his life, and therefore his sons-in-laws are, this guy's a joke.
That might look like a whole big friend group that you have that really is centered more around sports and hobbies, maybe fishing, golf, cars. It's a whole friend group that you have that you really don't have any seriousness in. It's all a joke. I mean, it's a joke. That's no seriousness in the relationships. This was the effect it had on his son-in-laws.
So it wasn't that he was busy about the Lord's business. There was chaos because he was double-minded, who lived by what he saw and felt, and he was afraid and surrounded by sin. His wife was afraid, his daughters were sinful, and his sons-in-laws, of course, did not respect him. This had nothing to do with him living by faith and obeying God in what he called him to do.
Right.
And so the conclusion, after all of that, is we are arriving at, from studying Abraham and Lot's life, is not that you need to protect your wife and kids from the effects of ministry or what God is calling you to do in your life. It's that you must obey God above all else and bring your family with you.
You hear that? It's not that you need to protect your family from the effects of ministry and doing what God has called you to do. That's not how you'll save them. What you have to do is obey God above all else and bring your family with you. That's what Abraham did. His wife was put at risk as he walked by faith. Abraham trusted, so she trusted. His son was about to be sacrificed, but Abraham trusted, so his son trusted. And his son was blessed because of it. His servants went to war because he trusted and went to war. His servants served in Genesis 18. The guests that came, everybody got to serve because Abraham trusted and served. All of Abraham's household followed his lead as he followed God. Do you see that? The actual problem isn't that Lot didn't lead his family with faith. That's the actual problem. Lot wasn't leading his family with faith. His focus should have been bringing his family into his ministry calling, bringing them along with him as he obeyed God. That's what Abraham did, and that's why Abraham's family was in order. Didn't matter if Lot was at the gate or Abraham was at the gate.
Right.
The point was Abraham had been bringing his family along in faith. He trusted God, so they trusted God. Lot wasn't following God and was fearful and was led by his emotions and desires and followed the culture. So that's what his family did. So that in a moment, if Lot's gone because he's at the gate, it doesn't matter. The lasting effects from the way that he's been leading his family is what has condemned them.
So we're going to dive into some scriptures here just to reinforce this point. And we're going to can everyone turn to Numbers 14? I'm going to read this for you, and Nick's going to walk through it with us. Numbers 14 in verse 3 is where we'll start. Should we do the title slide here?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do a title slide. The Kingdom Family. You see, they're going with him. Got it. Very simple. All right, verse 3. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder.
Oh, man.
Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?
What noble people. What a noble fear that they have here.
So, as you guys may know, they are on the border of doing the exact thing that they've been working towards for years. This was the moment where they were about to go into the promised land, okay? So now, let's look at God's response in verse 26 to them. This is just a part of what he said. Verse 26, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, how long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing I heard you say. In this wilderness your bodies will fall. Every one of you 20 years old or more who was counted in the census and who has grumbled against me, not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. As for your children, that you said would be taken as plunder, I will bring them in to enjoy the land you have rejected. But as for you, your bodies will fall in the wilderness. Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness until the last of your bodies lies in the wilderness.
This is intense. God gave the community a directive. Go into the promised land. It was clear. They saw giants and many reasons to be afraid in the land. So God gives them a directive. Yeah, let's go do this. They get into the land. They see giants and things to be afraid of. They come back and give a report. Hey, there's giants in the land. And then people say, we can't go in there. Our wives and children will die. So they said, we can't do what God has called us to do because of the effect it will have on our wives and children. Men, can you not hear even our present day struggle in this? Can't you hear in this our own struggle? Fearing that what we are doing is what's going to ruin our wives and children. Worried about the effect that doing what God has assigned us to will have on our wives and children. It's too much for them. They need a break. Can we just find a different way? Would it be okay if we just went back home? I just want to go home. This is too hard. This is too much. Can we just go home? Do you hear that? That's what they were asking for. God is so furious with this attitude, he actually says in verse 12, I'm just going to strike them all down and destroy them. I'm going to destroy everybody. And then he says to Moses, but I'll make you into a nation that's greater and stronger than they are. What a crazy thought. Why wouldn't God just say, it's okay, guys, you can do this. It's okay. Yeah. You guys can come, I'll take care of you. I won't let anything happen to you. Just come. You see, he had actually already told them that.
Yeah, it's crazy that God didn't just console them.
Right.
He didn't just come to them and say, hey, we can do this. It's going to be okay. You know why? Because he couldn't have that go into the land.
That's it.
That's a mentality. That was when, as we will talk about in Deuteronomy 8 later, he brings these things on us to expose our hearts.
That's it.
And this was exposed. And don't think that this was like the one time that they complained. No, he even says in this passage, this is the 10th time.
10 times.
That they have proved to me what is in their hearts.
Yeah. He's ready to destroy this people because of their mindset. Men, you must end this cowardice, ungodly, pusillanimous approach toward obedience when you fear for your wives and children. The desire of God was to bring these men along with their wives and children into all that he had planned. But instead, because of their cowardice and their compromise, he said, the children that you feared for will be the ones to go in, but you will stay stuck right where you are. Their children would look back on them, and we've talked about this in this church. Their children would look back on them and say, Mom and Dad were cowards. So now we're here, and their bodies fell in the wilderness because they said that they were afraid of what that kind of a life would do to us. But now we've been brought in. God cannot partner with this mentality.
Yeah, Jody will tell you how much complaining really, man, it really stokes my fire. I can't stand when people are complaining. And when I've thought about this, why is this? Why is this? Because we as Christians should be the most grateful, the most amazed. We are literally living creations, resurrected bodies that we are new. We're new creations. Resurrection bodies will come later, but we are new creations, as it says in Scripture. This is what God has done for us, and we've seen Jesus give all for us. We have nothing to complain about. Nothing.
Yeah.
And we've been bought with a price.
Yeah, in verse 22, he says, none of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, yet have put me to the test these 10 times, have not obeyed my voice. None of them will see the promised land. And that's what he did. Man, God has been patient with us to give us time to get the unbelief out of our hearts and to get the unbelief out of our family. But there will come a time when he will say, they have not obeyed my voice, and he will move on to someone who will. Think about that, men. You can make excuses for long enough to where you finally convince God, I'm not the guy you're looking for. I'm too afraid for my wives and children. Find somebody else. That's a very real thing.
What's amazing is that we have living examples in our one association that are doing the opposite. Do you have that picture? This was at the one association, just last time when we sent these guys off to Romania. Nick, Judah, Peyton, and Nick Massey, these men are literally living this out. They are doing what Abraham did. Their kids are going along with them. They are following the call of God. And now these guys are, like Abraham, are in the midst of a very intense trial where they are completely separated from their wife and their kids. And I guarantee you the fruit of that will not be their kids and their wives' destruction. The fruit of that will be that their kids and wives will be strengthened.
Let's say though, let's imagine for a second. What if these guys came back home to the States? What if they came back home and they were like, we gave it our best, guys. We feel like the Lord has got a different plan for us now. The visas just didn't work out. Our wives and our kids were in a real rough spot. So we wanted to come home and just regroup. Would anybody blame them? Would it be understandable if they did that? That'd be understandable. Would that be understandable? These men would never stoop to that. They are not weak, cowardice, pusillanimous men who abandon the call of God on their lives because it's too much for their wives and kids. And to be honest, men, when I hear the reasons that some of you are staying back from Wednesday nights or other studies that are going on or why you just can't commit anymore, tell me it isn't for one of these reasons. You are tired and fear you won't have the energy you need if you go. You fear you just don't have the capacity to do one more thing. You are afraid if you don't spend time with your family at home, negative things will happen to them. You are afraid of the effect that bringing your family will have on their energy and their attitude. You can dress it up and call it something else like, oh, well, this is the only time we have to do this or that other thing. Or, oh, we are trying to get our American kids on a modern sleep cycle. But the truth is, fear is ruling your decisions. God is calling this church to step up, and it is for a reason. I am pushing myself more than I ever have before, and it's producing good fruit in me and in so many, including my family. Yes, I am tired. Yes, the grass at my house is not as pretty as it used to be. Yes, I don't get to some of the little projects around the house. Yes, I don't get to be on social media, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as much, but I am becoming more secure as a child of God. I am becoming a more confident husband and father. I am becoming more aware of the will of God for my life and for others. So let the kids fall asleep on the chairs at church. Let someone else watch the YouTube videos. Let the little projects fall by the wayside and let the grass grow. We have to take advantage of the time that we have been given.
Amen. This is so good. And I want you all to turn to 1 Corinthians 7. This really blew me away. Look at verse 29. What I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time is short. This is Paul speaking. This is 2,000 years-ish ago, and he's saying it was short then. From now on, those who have wives should live as if they do not. That's a shocking statement. Jump to verse 32. I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife. And his interests are divided. Thank you, Milton, for giving that word during worship. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, how she can please her husband. I am saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way in undivided devotion to the Lord. Do you see what Paul is saying here? Time is short. Live lives as if you don't have wives. If he was saying that 2,000 years ago, how much more now? Married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife. Did you all make that connection? Pleasing your wife's pleasures, her whims, her wishes, connected with affairs of this world. That's crazy. Paul said it, not me. But now we're saying it. And before all the women get angry and want to crucify me, he says the exact same thing about the husband's pleasures, whims, and wishes. They are affairs of this world. We both must live in a right way. And what is that right way? An undivided devotion to the Lord.
Yeah, let us say something real quick about the specifically the wives. Because husbands, you might be thinking, wait, I understand that I'm supposed to be living in an undivided devotion to the Lord, but it's talking about my wife not being concerned even how she's supposed to please me. What does that look like? Pastor Peter brought up the story of Zipporah. Do you remember when Moses was moving forward and he hadn't circumcised his children yet? And Zipporah circumcised them and then threw the foreskin at Moses' feet and called him a bridegroom of blood? Yeah, God was going to kill Moses before that moment. Here's the way that I believe that this can play out. I believe this is one of the ways, just to make this clear. I don't know where we got it. We fell into this trap of wives covering up for their husband's sin. No. This idea, well, my husband said it, even if it's sinful. I'm not talking about you don't agree with him deciding where you guys should go for dinner. I'm talking about when he's clearly in sin. He is offended and he is slandering someone to you. Okay? He is clearly doing what is wrong, but to save face, you simply support everything that he does. One of the things that I love about Lindy is when I'm in sin, she says it. Because her concern is to please the Lord over me in that moment. Do you see? She doesn't just support me because we have an image that we're trying to project of a power couple, and we need all of you to believe that image, which is a reality out there. Okay? She'll call me out in my sin. Wives, you should do that for your husbands.
Saves their life.
That's showing your devotion to the Lord over being divided to just please your husband in anything that he does. Not in sin, you don't. Do you see? That's how we can live that out specifically.
Guys, you all have, every person in here that's been placed in this body have serious calls on your life. Are you doing everything you can to take that call seriously as if you don't have a spouse? If you didn't have a spouse, what would you be doing differently? I want you to pause and think about that right now. Now, if you answered that question with something that is godly and for the Lord, you should be doing that anyway.
All right, so we're going to keep diving into this. Let's imagine a conversation is happening between a husband and a wife at home. Maybe this looks like a conversation that you've had. The husband says, "Hey, let's go to Foundations Wednesday night." Now, the husband's been working a lot, and deep down, he would like to relax, but there's also a part of him that wants to pursue the kingdom. The wife says, "I'm so tired. Why don't you just go and I'll stay back with the kids?" Now, she's looking for pastoring here, and she needs encouragement that she can do it. But the husband, he feels guilty and can relate because he also is tired. He doesn't want to have to make her do something when she's tired and thinks, well, maybe the kids can stay back and I can focus at church. And then he says, "I really want you to come." But now he's in a negotiation with his wife about how to lead the family. His wife, sensing a lack of leadership, says, baby, I've been so busy all day and I haven't even had a chance to sit down. Tomorrow we have all this going on and I'd like to be able to stay back and get this done. Well, she's now giving vision for the family. She might even add one more chance for the husband to lead, like, but if you want me to go, I'll go. This is a great response. But the husband, feeling torn between what to do, says, okay, why don't you just stay home tonight and get all that done, and I'll come home right after. The wife, happy that there is direction, even though it came from her and not the husband, because he abdicated his leadership to his wife, is now happy that the situation is resolved. So the husband says, hey, let's do this. And the wife says, oh, I don't want to. Why don't you just go do that? The husband begins to feel guilty, really, truly insecure about his leadership. For whatever reason, maybe he's been busy a lot, and in his own mind he's thinking, is what I'm doing destroying my family? He has that double-mindedness, that insecurity. She says, can I just stay home? Because she's a person who has tired feelings and wants to stay home just like we do as the husbands. I want to stay home sometimes too from church. I want to stay home from some meetings that I have to go to. There's parts of me that when someone walks in the door, I'd rather just stay in my bed. I also know what that feels like. But the wife offers that up to her husband, just like we offer that up to the Lord in the moment. So the wife offers this up to the husband. Now the husband in this moment can either choose to shepherd her through what she's feeling. Hey baby, I know you're tired, but this is what we're going to do. The Lord will strengthen us. Come on, let's do it with a happy heart. And then she'll probably say, okay. Unfortunately, you've got your own battle going on in your mind. I feel guilty about what I'm leading her into. She's tired right now. Shoot, I'm also tired. I know what that feels like. I don't want her to hate her life and then hate me. Maybe a way that I can make her happy is to give her what she's wanting right now. Now she's leading. And you're thinking that if you give in to your fear, that will actually resolve the problem in the family. Oops, you now just made the same mistake that Lot makes. Because she doesn't follow your leadership in the moment about what to do with the family, but she does follow your leadership in being afraid. You've now set the example that double-mindedness and fear is allowed in this family. I too, honey, have been double-minded. I know what it's like to feel as if how you feel. Why don't you give in to your flesh the way I sometimes want to give into my flesh? Will that make you happy? Will you sleep with me then? That's not what cures the problem. And you know what's crazy after that? The children. We haven't even started with the children. Let's walk through this again. The unhealthy fear that we get that ministry or doing what God has called us to is going to destroy our family leads to us feeling guilty and cutting off ministry to appease our wives. This is fear in us men, which leads to passivity. Fear in men leads to passivity. If it doesn't lead to like anger and rage and control like that, and you throwing things and saying, just do what I say. The other side of that is passivity. Our wives pick up on this fear and they become afraid as well. But their fear leads them to want to control and dictate what's done with the family and with the time. So they begin giving us direction. And we feel if we give into this that we are investing into our family. Or leading by being considerate of them as the weaker vessel. But our children pick up on this dysfunction, this wrong order, this fear, and they begin to become children who throw fits, who act out, and who manipulate to get both parents to abandon what God is trying to lead the family into. It's not their fault, they're kids. See how this works. Your wife doesn't throw a fit like kids throw fits, but she expresses what she's wanting to do. You feel guilty and then let her decide what happens. Your kids have things they want to do. They begin to throw fits. You feel guilty about the kind of life that you're making them lead, or how many times you've spanked them or correct them. So then you give in to what they want to do. Do you see how all that works? So you can't blame. Look, I believe that autism is real. But you can't blame everything that your kids are doing on your some perceived disability. I don't know if I can even go down that road. How about this? Standards are still the same, they don't change. You have to hold standards for your children. And if they see that they can push against it and bend you, then of course they won't stop. But husbands, it's the same thing for your wives. It all flows downhill. Because in reality, husbands, if you know what you're supposed to be doing with your family and you're pushing back against God, well, He gives us free will. So He will let you walk into the consequences of your choices. And then you will feel those consequences. And you may even begin to resent your family for what you created. And then you begin to find hobbies and other ways to get away from them because you don't like being around what you created. And that's how all this works. Do y'all see that? That's actually what causes the problem. Not following God in faith and trust. That's what causes the problem.
Yeah, guys, Jesus reiterates this in a parable in Luke 14. And right around this whole chapter, He's talking about the cost of discipleship. How much it will take for us. And He gives a story in the 16th verse. He says, Jesus replied, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses." Say, excuses. The first said, "I have just bought a field and I must go and see it. Please excuse me." Another said, "I have just bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm on my way to try them out," whatever that means. "Please excuse me." Still another said, "I just got married, so I can't come." The servant came back and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servant, think Numbers 14, "Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town, bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame." "Sir," the servant said, "what you ordered has been done, but there's still room." Then the master told his servant, "Go out to the roads and the country lanes and compel them to come in, so that my house will be full. I tell you, not one of those who are invited will get a taste of my banquet." What's crazy about this is that the actual issue is not that ministry and family are in conflict. The issue is that we have priorities other than the Lord for both ourselves and our family. We want certain things. We have expectations for certain things, and those get in the way of the Lord's priorities. Excuses. We don't have oxen, we don't have fields, well, some of us have fields, but these are a little outdated. So they could be something like, you are too busy, you are too tired, you'd rather entertain yourself, you're afraid of the costs. But at the end of all the excuses, it is a picture of a family at a table. And it is our job, men, to lead our families to that table. The table, the banquet that the Lord has for us. And it takes some effort. It takes some oomph to get your families there. Spurgeon said, "Excuses are curses. And when you have no excuses left, there will be hope for you." We want to drive this point all the way home. Let's show you what this looks like.
You ever met anybody that's having trouble with their finances? Just can't seem to get ahead, and it's a perpetual problem. All right, how about this? Have you ever been in a place where you've had struggle with your diet and you just can't get it right? Okay, let's show how this applies to every area of life. I've sat down with many people to go through them with their budget, okay? And they say, I don't make enough money. I can't afford my life, okay? I need help. We need help. Can the church give us some money? I've sat down with tons of people like that. Now, Paul mostly does it. But we've sat down with people and gone through their budgets, and you know what's crazy? Lots of times they come to that meeting with a $8 Starbucks drink. It's insane to me how someone can look and say, there's not enough, but there is enough for them to still be able to give themselves the comforts that they want. Oh yeah, I bought that dress or that shirt, or I bought that hat or those shoes, but I needed that for this. Oh, I needed that for this. And it's like, well, that's your problem. Well, what am I supposed to do? Not get this? Yes. If you eliminate some of these extra comforts, you'll be able to afford life. It looks like God has given you enough, but there's not enough for you to add in this extra crap. Now let's go to the diet. So a lot of times what's happening is people can go on these tracks and these periods of time where they're eating what's right, but then they sabotage themselves when they give themselves a little bit of a cheat. And it's like, well, I deserve it. I've been doing what's right so much, I deserve to be able to do this. Well, that's your problem. You could do this if you didn't give yourself the extra comforts. You would have enough. There would be enough. It would work. It's the same way with what God has called you to. For some of you, you're looking and you're going, there's not enough time in my day. I don't have enough. When in reality, you do. It's that you also factor in your own comforts into your schedule as well. The same people who are complaining about how much they have to do and how busy their lives are and why they can't commit to some of the things that are happening here or what God has called them to do is because they just don't have enough time. Those same people also are scrolling for an extra hour or two during the day. And it's like, there it is though. That's your extra time. That's what's actually required from you. You could do it if you gave up this comfort. You see, we have an expectation. We expect certain comforts. We expect certain time to ourselves. Self-care. Love it. Love the idea of self-care. Such a Jesus idea. Not let him care for you by casting your burdens on him, but you figure out how to care for you. Find $1,000 a day spa. You care for you. He knows what you need. And if you will let go of those comforts that you demand, you would have enough. There would be enough. You could get it done. And that's what he's asking of us. That's what he's asking of us. Let go of the excuses as to why you can't do this. I don't know why he's making us get as serious right now as he is, but I trust that it's what we need, and if it's what we need, then we should trust him and just follow forward. Our families will also begin to trust more as we trust more. That's what we're sowing seeds into.
Do you want to know where stress comes from? Anytime I have stress in my life, who here believes in Ephesians 2? He's prepared good works for you beforehand. Do you think he's like, all right, here, we're just going to max out. Oh, we'll give Ben just even more so he's completely stressed out. No, I believe he's given me exactly what I need to be able to do what I need to do. It's when I add into that time and that schedule, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. That's where stress comes from. Where you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. It's not God. God doesn't plan that. You think if we were following God perfectly, we would be stressed? No. Hard things, yes. But things where it's like, man, I'm behind, I'm procrastinating, I'm doing all this stuff and I can't catch up. It's because there's a mix.
Yeah.
A mix of my own. We're singing about, we want to give all to all of our body, all of our soul, all of our mind. That's what's required.
Yeah.
That's what God needs.
The house is clean, it's just not clean enough. I'm in shape, but I'm not in enough shape. I'm making good money, but I'm not making enough money. That's where all the stress comes from. More. It's got to be more. And that's not what he's called us to. That's not what he's called us to. Deuteronomy 8, we'll read 2 through 7. We got 2 more passages left. The Lord actually explains the purposes of different trials and testings that you face. As we read this, men, think about the difficulties you and your family are facing as you are deciding how deep you want to go into all that God has called you to. By the way, my wife is my best friend. I love spending time with her more than anybody else on the planet. We have a great relationship. I love my wife. We love being together. We just celebrated 19 years. Wives, don't think for a second that you have to but that's not us, right, honey? I mean, you still love me? You love me? We're not listening. You're not listening to him, right? You don't have to listen to him. We're going to go back. We're still going to do the things we talked about, right? That's fear. Husbands, you start today. Don't give in to that. It's fear. There's fear that what we're talking about is going to lead to suffering. Yep. Sweet Jesus. He is sweet to us. Verse 2, remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. You hear that? Why does the hardship come? Why does the testing come? The Lord is testing you to see what's in your heart, whether or not you'll obey his commands. Or if you'll give in to fear and then go back to what you used to do. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna. Do you remember he not only let them hunger, he also let them go 3 days without water. Does that mean that God will let you get to the end of your budget to see if you'll let go of the comforts that you have? Does that mean that God will let you get to the end of your schedule to see if you'll let go of the comforts that you have? Will he let you get to the end of yourself to see if you'll go back to what you used to know and try and do it on your own and start complaining and become faithless? Does our God do that? Yes, he's saying he does right here. I absolutely do that is what he's saying right here. He's doing this to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. You remember in 2 Corinthians 1? We were brought to the end of ourselves. We thought we were going to die. But this happened so that we would not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. You remember that? It's another way to say this same thing. He's teaching you that we don't live on bread alone. Your clothes did not wear out. Your feet did not swell during these 40 years. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son to make you disciplined, to straighten you up, to get you to become mature. Like someone going into the army that starts off with, man, I don't know who these guys think they are, but I'm not listening to none of them. And they get straightened up. They get disciplined. And they learn how to obey and how to follow. And they become good soldiers who don't get involved in civilian affairs. Just as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. Might some of us lack some discipline in here? Maybe, possibly. Discipline is not pleasant, but painful. I want to tell you this real quick. Dads, when you say, all right, we're going to go to bring the whole family, we're going to go to Foundations. Let's just pick Foundations because we're just in the middle of it right now. Seems to be fewer people on Wednesday night than there are here on Sunday morning, so let's just pick Foundations. Right? Husbands, if you say, all right, Pastor Slaughter was talking about leading my family and trusting, so I'm going to do this. I can do this. I can do this. family, we're going to go to Foundations Wednesday night. And the wife was like, great. I do have to do this, though. Did you forget that I did schedule this? I have this going on. So can I stay back with the kid? Would that be okay? And the husband's like, I knew this was coming. I can do this. No, you're coming with me. And then she's like, okay. So then you load them all up and you're feeling so good, right? You're feeling so good. You're here. You look to the side of you and your whole family's there and you're like, I did it. I'm leading my family. But then your kids start to go nuts. And then the wife is looking at you like, look at what your leadership has gotten us. It's fine. I'll handle it. Husband sitting there, shoot, I know I'm a terrible leader. I know I shouldn't have made those choices. I should have just let her tell us what to do. The children are acting because they need discipline. What's happening is you obeying God is now showing the sin that's in your family. Oops, your kids need to be disciplined. That's okay. The reason they need to be disciplined is because you've given in to them all the time before. Or they're just kids that need to be taught discipline. One of those two. Either way, here's your opportunity. Right? What's awesome is on Wednesday nights for 2 hours, God has taught grown-up adults to sit still for 2 hours in a church. Not in a movie theater or a sports game. In a church. That's crazy. The Lord is growing us. And now our kids are learning how to also be disciplined while they sit and actually pay attention or sit still without being given their own iPad with rubber grips on the side of it like you see from parents in the world at every restaurant. When you obey, it will reveal the sin that's in your family. That's not a reason for you to turn aside and not do what God has called you to do. You now have to address the sin. But that's how Abraham gets his family like that. He's been following the Lord, and he's been working on it as he goes. You don't give in to the sin, it just grows. And you resent each other. It says, observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in obedience to him and revering him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land with brooks, streams, deep springs gushing out into the valleys and hills. He wants good things for you.
Let's go to Deuteronomy 6. 1 through 7. This is an amazing passage. Many of the Jewish people, they will quote this Shema all the time in the middle. But I wanted to read the verses around it because it really applies to what we're talking about. You can see this passage as like, this is the application. This is the practical way that you live out what we're talking about. So in verse 1, these are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you, to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. All of you guys have a Jordan that God is calling you to cross. All of you guys have something in your life that God is challenging you to do, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God, as long as you live by keeping all the decrees and commands I give you. So, as we learned, we're only to fear God in the fearless message, not anything else, so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly. God's not out to make your life miserable. He wants you to enjoy life. He wants it to go well with you. He wants you to increase greatly. In a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. So as we're facing these Jordans, as we are facing these things that God is calling us to do, how we must do that, especially us who are leading, is to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then what does it say? These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Impress means hone. It means sharpen. It takes repeated action every day. And each little arrow or sword that you have are different. They must be honed in a different way. You have to do these things and speak these things to your children on a repeated basis. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. So it doesn't mean we need to carve out special times with the family. It means, did you see all the action words? It means do it as you're going about doing what God wants you to do. So like Abraham, it means, okay, we're going and we're going to a land. I actually don't know where we're going, but he didn't ask directions. That's a joke. It means talk with your children as you're going about this way. So this is God's prescription, and this is how he's telling the Israelites, this is a way you should do this. Does that make sense?
As much as you can, bring your kids with you. So this is the practical side of it. As much as you can, bring your kids with you. Use moments that are awkward, hard, sad, uncomfortable, joyous, celebratory to teach them and relate it all back to the commands. Do you hear that? Bring your kids with you as much as you can. It'll slow down my productivity in the short term, but not in the long term. God made kids inquisitive for a reason. They will ask questions as you talk about the Word of God. They will ask why you reacted a certain way when someone was mean or when you got mad. They will observe other men and women in your home, and they'll learn godly traits from them. And occasionally, yes, they may pick up some bad habits, but then you use the Word to correct that. God didn't design children to need to go to bed at a certain time. He designed them to be inquisitive. Look, our church faces special and unique challenges because we have 10 million children. But I'm telling you this, young families, we have to stop being cowards with our children's sleep. Stop being cowards. Please, for the love of God, teach your child how to be with you. If they fall asleep in a chair, who gives? Who cares? If you were in another country, it'd be no big deal. That's not what's going to make them productive adults. Any more than having a home birth or making sure that you breastfeed and not formula. All this stuff is crap. That's all crap. Fall in love with it because it's exciting for women to be passionate about something. But I'm telling you, what's going to make these kids actually turn into earth-shaking men and women of God is if you'll teach them the commands. If you'll let them see you live this life and be passionate and not fearful about what God has called you into. That's what actually makes them care about the kingdom. I want to show you what my kids have walked with us through. Sometimes when I look at these pictures, there's pain because a good majority of these people aren't here anymore. But I want to tell you who is. This is a picture of us as we came out of the house when the church started 12 years ago. There's a lot of people that I care very much about in this photo who aren't here anymore. And that's sad. But you know who is here? Caleb, who's blocking the sun. Lily is right there. Paul and Melissa. Manuel, who's now married. Mandy, who's now married. Jason Stasinski, who's now married. And for that, I'm grateful. Lucy is in our mind, babe. No way. Oh yeah, brand new Lucy. I'm sorry, Lucy. I'm sorry, Lucy. There's Lucy. I didn't even notice. All right, look at the next one. Our kids are right there with us, falling in love with these people just like we are. Go to the next one. There's Caleb, right with me, sitting at the table with people that we dearly love, that he loved too. And then when they're not here anymore, he asks me questions. Dad, I love these people. What's going on? And then I open up the Word and I talk with him. I don't shelter him from ministry. I bring him into it. Go to the next one. These people are our family, and we love them dearly. And it hurts. Bringing your children into ministry will result in pain, but you will teach them through the pain, and you will help them understand, and you will take them to the scriptures, and you will show them this is why we do what we do, and that's how they will learn. As you bring people into your life and you don't shelter your kids, you don't section it or compartmentalize your kids away from it, but you let them fall in love, you let them experience the pain and the hurt, and then you show them in the scriptures why these things are happening, or you teach them how to deal with loss and pain. And that's how they will learn to grow up and be men and women who follow the commands of God. Amen?
When I think of a kingdom family, this next picture is what I picture. Oh, I don't know if you have it. Maybe not. All right, I will describe it. It's really just our Shabbat dinner. That's what I picture with as a kingdom family. Is my kids there, you guys there, and people sharing their pain, their hurts, and us praying, or successes. It doesn't always have to be pain.
How many of y'all have been to Shabbat at the Hefner's house? Look around the room. Look around the room.
And so this is what I picture as a kingdom family is like when we're praying with people and we're there with their successes and their hurts. And God walking us through those things, and the kids just are there observing and asking questions and being that. And so really, I just want to simplify this message down for you very, very succinctly. If you focus on God's will for your life, then your family's needs will be taken care of. 100%. You have to stop making decisions for your family based on fear. It ruins the God-given design, and it will flow down, and possibly you lose everything. Because you will lose everything. If you make decisions out of fear, just like Lot, he lost everything. And I really want to circle back to the testimonies that I started out with, where we're faced with these. I'm faced with this fear of how am I going to manage and help my wife and my kids and all these things going on. And the truth is that God gives us all the grace that we need to be able to care for them in whatever comes our ways. I'm strengthened by what we're going through with the story of Abraham. Remembering that when I put the kingdom first, as Matthew 6 says, all these things will be added to me. The best part is that when we treat the family of God as our actual family, we're never alone. It's not that I do this alone. We have support. We have family. The satanic lie is that when we expend ourselves on others, we won't have enough for ourselves. That's a lie. Proverbs says, when you refresh others, you will be refreshed. If it wasn't for my dad, who I gave hell to for not spending time with me He never backed down, by the way. He never changed. But if he did, I wouldn't be here. It was because he knew what he was supposed to do. And he did it no matter what his people that were closest to him were saying. And that's the reason why I'm where I am today, even if I fall away. Even if your kids fall away, you just keep doing what you are called to do. And then I came back, and now I'm here. I came back to the Lord because of the faithfulness of my father, and his faithfulness poured into his wife and his children, my sister, who poured into me. And that's why I'm here. And so that's the testimony you guys have to look forward to. No matter what, if you are following the voice of the Lord in obedience, your family will be taken care of. God loves your family more than you do.
Yeah. That's so good. God loves your family more than you do. And he's better at loving them than you are. So follow his ways. Seek first the kingdom and bring your family with you. Here's what I want to do. I think that this is actually the right question to ask right now. Yeah, Pastor Peter, if you'd come up. Rather than asking the men right now, I actually want to ask wives, if in hearing this message today, if this is what you want from your husband, if this is how you want him to lead, would you please stand? You don't have to stand. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel like you're being forced to. Only if this is what you really, really want. Now, husbands, would you look at your wife? This is what she's saying that she wants. It's what she's saying she wants right now. It is what she is asking for. So now you have to ask the Lord to help you lead this way. Because you have fears too, men. You have fears too that you're not enough. And you aren't. But he is. And he's with you. You have fears that you don't know how to do it. And it's true you don't, but he does, and he'll teach you. Husbands, would you stand with your wives? We can't afford not to get this. You're going to leave this place, and I promise you, all the same rain's going to keep falling on you just like it did before. Husbands, don't expect that all the problems are solved right now. And wives, don't expect, even though you've got this perspective right now, that you won't be afraid again and try and get him to not lead you into something that's hard for you. That's going to happen again. But you've both got to be aware of that. And you got to be ready for that. And you got to say, no matter what comes my way, I've taken my stand here and I won't be moved. And learn to be joyfully immovable. Pastor Eric always says, you have to decide whether or not you want to go a respectable distance in the eyes of your peers or all the way with the Lord. Do you want to go all the way with the Lord? Or are you really just looking to go a respectable distance in the eyes of your social friends, your country club Christian friends? Do you just want to go a respectable distance? If you want to go all the way with the Lord, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like today, what we talked about. And he'll take us to places that we've never imagined. He'll take us into depths of freedom and joy and security and peace like we've never known before. Clarity, confidence, purpose like we've never known before. And we'll be able to help others. Do you find it frustrating to help others? Do you find that you don't even know what you're doing when you set out to help others? It's because you have to first be helped.
And this is what he's leading us into. Amen? Let's sing together. You'll grab